This is the second part to your video, Introduction to Writing and Solving Linear Equations in One Variable. In this second part, we're going to learn about literal equations. A literal equation is an equation which consists of primary letters. So formulas are an example of literal equations. Each variable in the equation literally represents an important part of the whole relationship expressed by the equation. So in this first part, especially since solving literal equations is new to you, we're just going to describe the steps occurring in the following equations. So we notice our final answer here is to get x by itself. So we had to walk through the steps to get x alone. So in our first step, we added y to both sides to get us here. In the next step, since it was 4 times x and I want to get x alone, I had to divide by 4. In number 2, I noticed the first step to get x by itself is to subtract 2 from both sides to end up here. If you notice, 3b and negative 2 are not like terms, so it just becomes 3b minus 2. From there, just like in the last one, to get x by itself, I have to divide both sides by k. And then since I had to divide everything by k, 3b minus 2 is all over k. In number 3, just as the first two go, you're always adding or subtracting first, just like in regular equations. So to get x by itself, because they both have x by itself there, I need to subtract the 6 from both sides. Which then leaves me here. 1/2 x equals u minus 6. To get x by itself and I have a fraction, I need to multiply by the reciprocal. And the reciprocal of 1/2 was 2, so the reciprocal here is 2. Multiply both sides by 2. I have x equals 2 times u minus 6 because I multiplied everything on the right-hand side by 6, which was u minus 6. And then I can take it a step further here and distribute the 2 in. It's not necessary, but in case you see that step. In number 4, my goal again is to get x by itself. And if we notice, we read this as 6 equals 1/2 times x times y squared. The first thing I'm going to do is I divided both sides by y squared. Okay, since again the inverse of multiplication is division. I now have 6 divided by y squared equals 1/2. Just like in number 3, to get rid of that 1/2, I need to multiply by the reciprocal. And again, this reciprocal was 2. So I multiplied both sides by 2. And when I multiply by 2, I multiply across. 2 times 6 is 12. 1 times y squared is y squared. So that's where I get my final answer. Alright, in the last 3, we are going to solve them ourselves. And they're going to give us an indicative variable for us to solve for. So the indicative variable up here would have been x. We were solving for x. Down here we solved for a, d, and x. Alright, so my first equation, it says 8 equals 1/2 bc squared plus a times c. I want to get a all alone. Okay, let's pretend this said 8 equals 4 plus ac, and I wanted to get a alone. The first thing, just like up top here, I would have subtracted the 4 to the other side. So here, this entire part, I can subtract over. And now it'll say 8 minus 1/2 bc squared equals, they canceled on the right, ac. Alright, so let's just keep going with the one over here that says 4 equals ac. I want to get a by itself. A times C. To get rid of that C, I need to divide, since division is the opposite of multiplication. And that would have been my answer. So the same thing I'm going to do over here. I'm going to divide both sides by C. This entire left side needs to be divided by C. And now that A is by itself, you need to do no more work, and that is my final answer. Alright, so I just crossed off the number 6, so let me rewrite it here. And I need to solve for D. So I want to get D by itself. If this said 2/3 D equals C, since I have a times x and a divide by 8, I have a times 2 and a divide by 3. The way you know how to solve these equations is just like up here, number 3 and 4, multiplying by the reciprocal. I am going to do the same thing here. Multiply by 3 over 2 on both sides. They cancel on the left, leaving D equals C times 3 is 3C. 1 times 2 is 2. So that would be my answer. So now let's use it over here. I want D by itself. So I am going to multiply by the reciprocal on both sides. Cancels, cancels. D equals C times 8 is 8C. 1 times x is x. And that is my final answer for 6. In number 7, I am solving for x, and I have negative 9x minus g equals negative 27g. This one's a little easier to solve because there's g's. I want to get the x by itself. X equals is my main game. So I want to add the g to the other side. I have negative 9x equals negative 27g, and I'm adding a g to it. They are like terms, unlike the other ones we did. And then I just want to get x by itself. Negative 9 times x equals negative 26 times g. Divide both sides by negative 9. X equals negative 26g over negative 9. We always simplify, so those two negatives go away. And this is my final answer. Make sure you stop into office hours with any questions.